especially, I think a way to meld that together is a lot of community outside of your rehearsals, your Sunday mornings. You got to be able to build that trust so that worship leader knows that your audio guy, you two are on the same page, that you're able to work together on it, that it's not just I'm here doing my own thing, they're doing their own thing, and we don't talk. Community is super important with that.
This changes everything, all eyes are on you, as you show us how to live and love like you. This is a call for all to know. This changes everything.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Red River Leadership. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you guys today?
We're so good at our intro. Good, Nolan, how are you?
Good. Who's this strange man we've got up on here?
Yes, joining us today is Tim Jaycox, and Tim Jaycox has just years of worship production, worship leadership experience, Fargo-Moorhead area and probably elsewhere, and just has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to audio and live streaming, video work, and kind of everywhere in between. So we were just excited to bring him on, pick his brain a little bit, chat through some solutions and things that he's found helpful along the way. And yeah, without further ado, how are you, Tim?
Good. It's good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Seriously,
Yeah, awesome.
though, a real live wizard.
Yes, wizard. I call him a magician in the caption. I
Yes,
couldn't remember what Nolan's favorite term was, wizard or magician.
Oh, gosh.
Well, Tim, if we just want to dig in a little bit, tell us just about yourself a little bit, and kind of the experiences you've had along the way, or the worship experience specifically you've had, and kind of some of the projects you've been a part of, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I've been leading worship since I was in high school. Doing that off and on. In the last probably 2 years, been spending way more time with audio production and doing stuff like that. Worked for about 2 years with a production house here in town and did some traveling with them and did a lot of corporate events, some concerts, stuff like that. And then when the pandemic hit, dove in a lot with a church around the area here. We're doing some streaming and broadcast stuff like that. Yeah, so primarily what I used to do is primarily lead worship, play guitar, and then it's kind of morphed into a lot more audio related, like stuff like that. So, and it's helpful that I've been a worship leader in the past, because that helps communicate better with what's happening on stage and communicate those needs and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's kind of
100%.
It's kind of a whole different world. I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
We've got a guy who works here at Calvary who just brilliant camera work, videos, all of that. But we kind of switched over to me editing the videos, because this whole world of worship leading and having a vision for it through that lens is so different. So I think that as people who work in tech, like, to have worship leaders in that role is so valuable. And like we've said, Tim's just all over the place. I remember, John, we did a worship leadership conference. Like, I felt brand new. I had some years before, but like the serious worship leader where I really took things seriously and started taking training and really diving in, that was 5-6 years ago. And Tim, you were teaching things back then. So and I still have the paperwork to prove it. I kept all his notes. Everything else I burned, but Tim's stuff, that I framed and I have it because it was so good. But just having that worship leadership mindset and then taking that into the different areas, I think is such a great way to move forward as a unit.
And that's hard to find. You think about, over the years too, with my experience at Good Shepherd, and different side projects along the way. Like there is just a different mentality of musician, and then there's production. And I think we've seen
Yep.
that in a variety of different settings where you're really well versed in one or the other, and finding the people who understand kind of what's happening on stage and what's happening in front of house. That it's hard to find, and there's just a unique communication that has to happen there. If
Yep.
you don't have one person that does both well, working hard to create a good bridge between your production team, your production leader, your tech booth, whatever it is, and your worship leader, your musicians on the stage, is a really big deal. So having some insight into both worlds is a great thing.
Yes, I think it's very important. Especially, I think a way to meld that together is a lot of community outside of your rehearsals, your Sunday mornings. You got to be able to build that trust so that worship leader knows that your audio guy, you two are on the same page, that you're able to work together on it, that it's not just I'm here doing my own thing, they're doing their own thing, and we don't talk. Mm-hmm. Community is super important with that. So
yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's one takeaway right there. If you're not doing get-togethers, lunches, suppers, coffees, whatever it is,
yep.
taking the time to build relationships outside of the sanctuary. I love that. That's great.
Yep.
That's great. Well, let's dig into a couple things. Tim, in your experience, with production, let's go there first, and maybe let's just even focus into audio. When you're coming into a sound booth, if you have a new volunteer there, maybe, or you're training somebody in new, what are some of the first things you kind of focus on when mixing for a live worship experience, or for just kind of how do you set things up? I know that's a huge, I mean, we could spend hours on just this a little bit, but if there's just a few things that come to mind right away that you feel like you want to dig into, I'd love to hear some of that.
So there's probably way better ways of doing things than I might recommend, and that's okay. So I don't know the answers to everything, so keep that in mind. First thing, always have a talkback mic. It goes back to communication. So I have spent probably 9-10 years in portable church environments. And in those cases, those tensions get high because you have a deadline to load in, deadline to get set up and running. And if something isn't working, you got to troubleshoot that on the spot, figure out how to get rolling as fast as you can. Having a talkback mic, so you're not yelling back and forth to your worship team. You can just communicate, calm voice. Even if you are yelling back and forth between each other and you're not actually upset, it still sets a tone of there's a tension going on and there is something that is going on between people that is potentially negative, and that just sets a tone for the entire day. So that's the first thing. I have my own way of doing things as far as running audio. So if I'm showing someone how to do something, I'm not going to show them what I would do, because what I do might be way over the top for somebody to figure out, and it's not necessary. Like, if I have ability to do it, I'm going to be mixing on buses where I'm sending all my vocals to a bus, sending all my drums to a bus, all my guitars, everything like that to buses. That way I can get what I need as far as compressing that, if I need a bunch of compression or whatever. So that might be something that I do, but I would just keep it as basic as I can if it's someone new, and be there to help them, show them what EQ is, show them how to get proper gain staging. That's the second thing, proper gain staging. Talkback, proper gain staging, making sure that your gains are correct so you're not clipping, anything like that. And try as best to explain the why of why these things are important. Throwing out all this information but not explaining the why of this, doing this and this and this helps to accomplish this. And for me, I like to try to always communicate it's about the gospel. Everything, whenever I'm in a church setting, I try to make that my mindset of what I'm doing is to help communicate the gospel better. I want to have clear vocals so that the lyrics can be heard, or most importantly, the pastor's message can be communicated, so that someone who isn't a person of faith is able to hear the gospel clearly. So all that to say, yeah, I would run as basic as possible, gain staging, showing EQ, and then let them start mixing, and then kind of explain, have them, if they have questions, make it very clear that they can ask questions. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah. I want to hit on something that you were saying here a little bit, is that your number one goal is to make sure the gospel is heard.
Yes.
And something that has really been a mindset shift for so long. Maybe it's just some of the churches I've been in, maybe not so much yours, but it was always like the pastor does his thing, and then there's the worship team, and they're the ones who are doing it, and then other people aren't. They're volunteers, or they're just helping or whatever. Yeah. And I think just something for us all to get clear is that that what you do is ministry. You are a minister. The lead tech is a minister. The worship director is a minister. The usher is a minister. The greeter is a minister. Every part that we have is all called to come together to point the way to Jesus. That is ministry. You are a minister, and it is all different parts of one body. And I just love how you pointed that out. So thank you, Jaycox. Sorry, I got caught up.
That's so good. I love it. I am so guilty of like going right to the strategy and nuts and bolts, and thinking about the different methods and the different philosophies and just tech terms that I often don't speak to the overall mission and being gospel centered and just having. I love it. I love it. I think it's so good.
Which those things are important, and we need to make room to be able to, because sometimes we have to go through that stuff and say, no, this is why we do this, and this all together. Like, I don't fully understand video, and sometimes you have to take the time and walk through those troubleshooting moments, of why you need HDMI to SDI converters and what they do,
Right.
But and it all ties back to the community aspect of it too, because that way, if you're having community outside of a Sunday morning, outside of your rehearsals, you're able to develop those relationships and really, really communicate the gospel through your community and all of that. So.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. So you said you've been a part of a bunch of different startups in the past. Is there thinking of startups or thinking of some of those, if I'm a small church, rural Minnesota, and developing this maybe for the first time, what are some of those first things that you have to focus on to make sure that startup can happen? What's some of the gear that maybe you look at? And I know that it's all building blocks and you build it up from there, but what are some thoughts you have there?
Yep. So it starts with context, I think. What is the context of, if it's a church plant, what is the context of the environment? Like, if are you just going to be doing keyboard, couple vocalists, that kind of thing? Or are you going all out full band, drums, everything like that? That's the first step, is understanding what the context is. Obviously, if it is a brand new church, you don't know what the context is going to be of demographic of people. Like, you don't know if you're going to be a church off the bat that's blue collar workers, anything like that. So that, I think that's the first step. If you know for a fact that you're going to be off the bat for a year, 2 years, a very small, one vocalist, two vocalist, you don't need to go all out. You can probably get by with a rack mount mixer. Those are not my favorite, but there is a place for them. They're not my favorite just because I like to have a physical console in front of me. I like to be able to adjust faders and not worry about Wi-Fi going down and losing control. Like I said, I've been a part of portable church for probably 10 years or so, 11 years. And one church that I worked at, we had we got the X32R, is that what the rack mount is called? We had that right when it came out, and we had so many connection issues. Like, it would take probably an hour to 2 hours of our load in and rehearsal time to troubleshoot that. So that's my preference of why I don't like rack mount, but there is definitely a purpose for it. Totally makes sense. But yeah, if you're a small church, you don't need to necessarily have 4 subs aside, stuff like that. Yeah, it's cool, but if you don't need it, you don't need it. So I hope that kind of answers what you were asking.
That's great.
General starting point.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Nolan, I know you guys you have that rack mounted for outdoor.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way as I've come along. I think early on I was like, oh my gosh, just so we can save money. We can be mobile friendly. It can live in a rack that's on wheels. Like, we can move it around easier. We can package this whole thing up to make it more mobile friendly. But you're sacrificing options, and you're sacrificing some troubleshooting options long-term. Nolan, have you run into that at Calvary at the Lake with the rack mount?
We certainly did in the beginning stages. And different routers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
This will be our 4th year using it. We have Joel now, who also very, very intelligent. He's built the Wi-Fi. He took the router out and built Wi-Fi out through the antenna station. I haven't even really looked that closely because.
So explain his background and the role he plays at Calvary real quick.
So Joel is IT, and that's about as much as I understand of it. But
which is okay. You found him and he's in that role, so then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Tech director, musician, all around just great guy, good friend. And he's finding things that I've never seen done. And I think sometimes we put things in a box, like, this is how you do it. And he doesn't have that box. He just like, well, what's the functionality? How do we make it work? Then he finds a way, and it's so we haven't had any troubles since that. He ended up adding the paddles for the microphones.
Yep.
So then from outside of the board to get to those paddles, there's where all the antennae could be. I think that's where he built something that would send the signal to the iPad. So we've had no troubles with that. But he also somehow has connected that either to his
computer
hotspot, or else the camp's Wi-Fi. And so now we can control our board with iPads, but also our computers run off, actually have an internet connection through that same Calvary music.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to see how he does that. That sounds
he told me, I'm getting rid of this router. I was like, no, you're not. He's like,
yeah. Well, that's why I want to throw it to Nolan, because like, I know that if you have the people and the ability to build that out really well, custom, that networking ability, then some of that wireless becomes less of an issue. But for a startup where you're setting up, taking down every week. If it's in a gym, if it's in a shopping mall or a strip mall, or, wherever a startup could be located, you could be in a totally different situation. So I wanted to kind of speak to both sides of that.
Personally, just because, so ours is like, it's a 15-20 minute drive to the lake where we worship every week. We've got all of our gear in a trailer. It is a big process. And then it's stored somewhere else during the winter months. For me, especially because it does work, I love having the portability of it. I know from a mixing standpoint, not as great to be on a little screen compared to having a board and fidgeting around. However,
it just works though.
It's there's pros and cons to everything, right? And but I've certainly appreciated it. So we're kind of on this subject. So shout out to Joel on that. But something I want to speak to, looking at you two and thinking about Joel, there is a mindset that goes around that I really notice in you two and Joel. When something goes down, the calmness and the mindset of we're gonna figure it out. Compared to me, where you literally can see smoke coming out of my ears and my head spinning around, and I'm just walking in circles and freaking out a little bit. And I love that about you guys and Joel. Either of you, but especially you, Tim. Do you have like what is your mindset when you come into a situation and something goes wrong? Or like John, you sent me a snap earlier. Everything's going wrong. How do you like have that calm demeanor of I'm gonna fix it, it's gonna be fine? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I typically am high strung about that kind of stuff. Like if something goes wrong, I'm usually like on the verge of blowing up. Like full disclosure, that's how my mind works. And usually for me, it's what did I do wrong? What did I do that might have caused this to happen? Like suddenly your pastor's mic doesn't work. Was there something that I did? Did I route something wrong? I always internally turn it back on me and think that I was the one who caused the issue.
Take responsibility.
Yeah. And so that's not necessarily a healthy thing, but it's something that I'm definitely working on. So it's, I don't have an actual answer really, I don't think, as far as like how to alleviate that. But yeah, it's just something you gotta be able to take a minute, think through how do we together come through this and figure out, troubleshoot the problem. And if you know something won't work, don't do it. Like if you've seen this happen, like if you've seen something happen before and you've tried all these different steps and you know that these 5 different things aren't going to work, don't necessarily do them right away. I don't know. That might be, it might be a case by case situation,
Right. Yeah, I heard a quote that stuck with me the last couple of weeks, and it's kind of summed up a mentality I've had for a while, and it took a while for me to get there. But the quote was, "You either get the result you wanted, or you learn the lesson you needed." And that is just kind of summed up for me the mentality of we're on a mission to figure things out, to make sure that things work. And very much like you, Tim, I mean, under the surface, like I'm spinning and cruising and I'm thinking of everything, like what can we have, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm in front of people and with my team, it's just keeping that calm presence and just displaying that. Because the second that you let emotion kind of take over, your whole team, kind of like you were speaking to earlier, Tim, about, when there's issues or conflict, working through those things, but to not create, an atmosphere of tension in those moments, I think is huge. Just staying calm through it. I also often tell my team, expect things to go wrong. when we go in to record a beer and hymns or record a worship night or whatever it is, I just kind of, and that's not a negative. I've spun it in a way that's like,
Yeah.
this is like, expect things to go wrong. It's just part of the deal. There's always going to be an issue, and it's not, and nothing will make or break, nothing that breaks the day. But just plan for things to go wrong. And if things don't go wrong, well, that's an amazing day. Like, what a bonus. But be ready, be prepared for when that speaker doesn't work, or that microphone dies, or that, that guitar's pickup stopped working, or whatever it is. Just being prepared for that to happen, I think, has been a big
one other
part of it.
One other thing to add to that is, especially in the context of a portable church, when something goes wrong, be okay with eliminating that. So if you're using live drums and you have a crackle coming through your overhead mic, just go, if you have two overhead mics, just go to one, troubleshoot the problem while the band is rehearsing, swap out your cable. If you don't have that input coming through, if you can't figure it out, go with one mic. Don't spend your rehearsal time troubleshooting why something is making a noise, or because it's frustrating to a team when they're trying to, when they have a rehearsal that they need to get to, but you as an audio person are taking up their time. Oh, the keys have a noise on it, so we're going to put a gate on the keys because we don't want that hum coming through when nothing's playing. That's, to me, that's just a waste of time. It's a waste of everyone's time when just fade it down if you have to.
Right.
So stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, there's certainly a humility that comes with all of it. And I loved earlier how you'd mentioned taking accountability. First looking at what did I do? And even if it wasn't you, I mean, we had a recording issue a few weeks ago, and it was definitely one of our new guys that set this thing up wrong. And we got well into the recording before we realized that it was happening. And once I realized it, I could have either gone, dude, like, why did you, and I had to stop our whole recording, start from the beginning again. And I walked over, and this is not to whatever, but I walked over to the team. I said, I messed up. Like, we have to do this again. I didn't do this part right. You just take accountability, whether it's your fault or not. And I walked back to the guy and I said, hey, you set this up wrong, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And he's the type of guy that's very coachable and was just loving through it and was great. So, but it's always just taking accountability first and not casting the blame, because that'll definitely change your chemistry real quick at the team. And again, kind of raise that tension level. And we've all been there when there's a high tension morning and someone's freaking out about something. We're all trying to calm that person down, talk them back off the cliff. And at the end of the day, we want to be joyful.
Are you talking about Christmas Eve when that happens, or Easter?
I know.
I think that's certainly just the lesson of take responsibility. That's not a blame game. It's not shame or guilt, right? We're not you should feel bad. It's, I'm the leader here. I'm the person that people look to, and I'll take 100% responsibility for it. That's a Jack Canfield Success Principles book. If you've never read that one, it's brilliant. But take 100%, and then it's like, okay, that was my fault. Let's fix it. I think that's such a good stance to come from. Because as soon as you start pointing fingers as a leader, no, you did it. It's your fault.
Exactly.
That immediate takes down your credibility.
Right. One other story comes to mind. We had of not giving up and not quitting. Yes, there is times to make the decision. Okay, we're going to go without this. We're going to eliminate it. And you as the leader have to identify when that time is to make that call. We were a startup downtown Fargo. We launched Good Shepherd downtown, and tech issues every week, and just random stuff would happen. And so there's a big learning curve there. But one week we had just finished sound check, and I ran to the bathroom or was talking to some people I don't remember. And I came back to the booth, and the guy said, I'm not going to name any names. The guy said, the screens aren't working, but we're going to go without them. Like, it's all good. We're going to go without them today. Like, we'll do it like we do beer and hymns. Just tell them to pull out their phones. And I'm like, I looked at my watch and I was like, we have 25 minutes before the service starts. And you guys decided to not like,
Yep.
and it was a moment for me where I'm like, whoa, I'm either not teaching to get after it, or like, we have 25 minutes. And the guy said to me, I made the executive decision. Like, I hope you're okay with it. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, we got time,
Yep.
man. Let's go. And so we started, unplugging and replugging, unplugging, replugging, and we got them going like, 10 minutes before service started still. But it took just that extra oomph of like,
Yep.
we are on a mission here to make things work, to make things happen. Yes, and I was prepared to go the route that he had already said he
Yep.
wanted to go down. Of
Yep.
course, that's always plan B, but when you still have 20 minutes, like, man, you could potentially fix anything or find a solution in 20 minutes. 20 minutes is a long time in troubleshooting world, especially with Google right on your phone.
Yeah. Was it just a bad HDMI to SDI probably?
Yep. That's exactly what it was. And they had gone through unplugged, replugged a few times.
Yep.
They'd already kind of worked down the list. They
Yep.
didn't just decide to quit without trying. So I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but it was just one of those moments where, I'm like, we still have time. Let's keep unplugging and replugging. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going. And it kicked in. And that's, and it was just one of those things of, we have a job to do. And if we just get after it and try to get that result, we're going to either get the result or get close to it and learn the lesson we needed to figure it out for next week.
That's one of those things you can never have too many of, is HDMI to SDI converters.
Oh my gosh. I have a bin full of them. Like, so many brands. I was just working with a church this last week. They're having an HDMI issue. They put in a wireless HDMI solution. And, like, the idea of a wireless HDMI solution is awesome. I love the potential, like, mobility of it. Kind of like similar to the rack mount conversation. There's a lot of pros to being that mobile, but at the same time, you're probably going to run into more issues. And so now we're talking about, how do we do HDMI over SDI, HDMI over CAT? And so we had that whole conversation of adapters. And I said, if you're going to save money on this project, don't save it on the adapters. Like, find some quality name brand adapters. I've gone through way too many cheap off-brand adapters on Amazon. And even those have issues. I mean, none of them are a for sure thing, but now I have a whole bin full of Amazon HDMI to CAT, cheap HDMI to SDI, cheap ones. We bought the Black Magic ones over the years. You can go on and on that one.
But. Yeah. That's another thing too, especially in the context of portable. You do get what you pay for. Like an example, if you are going with I'll use this as an example, the stereo Behringer DI boxes. I have encountered those, unfortunately, a time or two, and run into the issue of, you can't gain up the channels as high as you need because you get white noise.
Yes.
But if you they're a $30 DI box, so people will buy them because they're cheap. And you can't ground lift it to get rid of that noise. It's still there, because the higher you gain it up, the more white noise you get.
Yep.
So I always am a huge proponent for go higher quality on that stuff. Like, you may think, is $150 for a DI box a lot of money? Yes, it is, but your sound quality is going to be way, way greater, and the durability of that product is going to be a lot better too.
Right. It'll last a lot longer. So instead of spending $30 every 4 months, you're spending $150 that is going to get you through probably 2 or 3 years, depending on, What would you say is your go-to DI box?
I absolutely love Radial. Love them. A church that I was working at that was portable, that was the place where there was the Behringer DI box, and I bought one of the Radial stereo DI boxes, swapped it out, and easily had another 10, 15 dB of headroom without any noise.
Right.
So, and then I have crazy theories and stuff like that on how, on some of that stuff. Like, when it comes to acoustic guitars, like it all depends on your pickups in there. Like some pickups take active DI boxes and whatever, for some reason, radically change how they sound and make it sound so much better. Like my acoustic, I have a J45 with an Anthem DI, or not DI, Anthem pickup from LR Bags. And if I'm using a passive DI box on that, it sounds okay. It gets the job done. But if I throw an active DI box on there, for whatever reason, it just brings that guitar to life.
Cool.
So.
Very cool. Yeah, we've got mostly radials at Good Shepherd too. And I totally relate to all your comments there, because we've definitely bought those Behringers, and I'm like, oh sweet, you can get like 3 of them for the same price as a radial. And I did that, and then heard it and went, ah, crap, like shoot, we just spent $90 and you know. So we always have them. They're still in a bin there. I wish we should have just returned them, but they're still in a bin. And whenever a guy pulls them out, like, hey, we can throw this one in, I'm like, no, don't use that one.
Yeah. What do you guys use, Nolan?
Oh man. Now we're all wireless.
Oh, okay. Well,
nice.
Yeah.
That's also nice.
I don't have anything on the stage anymore. That's
wow.
That's fantastic.
Even at the lake too?
The lake, I've got wireless. There's probably a couple, but we had some. They're not radial. They're not Behringer. They're somewhere in the middle there.
Probably like Whirlwind or something like that.
Yeah, something. I should take a look. It's one of those things that it's what I inherited. They work.
Yep.
And
yeah, I mean, when I first came into Good Shepherd, there's probably 5 different brands, and
yeah.
I was like, sweet. I didn't know. LR Bags, though, you mentioned that. That's definitely my favorite for acoustic guitars. I'll use the radial for on the fly or doing something, but we have 2 of those LR Bags, and they're awesome. I really like those.
That's the one that's really, that LR Bags. I don't even remember what the brand or the model number is, but it's the older one that has multiple knobs on it. That's what's really brought my guitar to life, is when I've used that one.
Yep. I'm going to pull it up real quick and just screen share a little bit since we're there. Yeah, I've got one that's got a tune, or I have the one that doesn't have the tuner built in, but I've seen the one that's got the tuner, and I'm really curious about that as a next purchase.
Not worth your time.
Okay, good to know. There we go. That's why that was why we did this whole call.
I've seen more issues with that one than I've seen. Yep, that one right there is fantastic.
Yep, that's the one that I've got.
Yep. Yeah, I can't remember what the other one is called, but I've seen more issues with that. It's the venue. Like in theory, it's great, but it's been so hit and miss on if it sounds good or not.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. From what
I just assumed LR Bags, with the success I've had with this one, that one must be just as good, you know?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I did get, I can't go into my page now because John's sharing his screen. It's, but you can look it up. It's Fishman Aura Spectrum DI. So that's, it has some, what do you call it? It has different guitar, like Dreadnought, orchestra, concert, jumbo, nylon, 12 string, bluegrass. It's
is it kind of like different tone prints?
Yeah, it's kind of a thing, like a preset through different, like a sampler almost.
Yep.
So I'll take that
like
in.
an IR.
Yeah, so I've played with that a little bit. However, it takes away my ability to be wireless, which I don't love. So I haven't used it too much, but it's worked fine for the few times that I played around with it. Kind of neat how it works.
Nolan likes to dance around a lot.
Yeah, I do like to dance around a lot.
Or run to the booth quick to troubleshoot something without having
to
put
exactly.
the guitar down.
Yeah,
the radios I've loved. I had a Fishman DI that I bought at the same time as that LR Bags. Actually, I bought the Fishman and the LR Bags. The guys at Flatlands recommended them both, and the Fishman only lasted about a year, and then structurally it started like falling apart. It would just got loose, and it didn't like. And we didn't throw it around very much. We kept that one at the church because it was a little more fragile. It had buttons on it, and we don't want to throw it in bins. But yeah, that one kind of broke down just in terms of durability. I like the sound as long as we could use it, but
yeah, I've used one of those a handful of times. Like you said, it kind of seems like it's not very durable. So
right, very light. But I know the Fishman's come. The reason I bought it is because I know I had Fishman electronics in my Taylor guitar at the time, and I'm like, okay, they must be a solid brand. Let's go ahead and try it. And yeah, oh well.
Well, I for making sure we stay on time here, I think I would like to end with number one takeaway from your experience, or favorite thing that you like to tell people. Tim, just to give us one last nugget, what is the biggest, the number
This
one?
is the hot seat. This is the moment right here.
Yep.
Are they tuning the piano right now too? You could not.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you could not have planned this time better, John.
Oh, Friday mornings are always so quiet here.
Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's really funny. There's two different things, but it all ties together. And I've already mentioned it. It's all about the gospel. It's all about bringing people closer to Jesus. And the second thing is, we're all worship leaders. If we're running audio, we're helping lead worship. If we're running Pro Presenter, we're leading worship. If we're off on our slides, which happens a lot, depending on the situation, that is an issue. Lighting is a whole nother topic that we could get into, that I could go on rants and rants and rants about.
Yeah.
I love haze. I love moving lights, but if you're not doing it in a worshipful way, it's distracting. That's my opinion. But we can lead people in worship with lighting. Absolutely. We can lead people in worship with video. And that's where the mindset needs to be, is that we are all leading people in worship with production. So
right. It all needs to go in the same direction.
Yep.
To Jesus.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I think it goes without saying that we need to have you back again, Tim. This has been a joy and an honor.
I would love to.
And next time we're gonna tune the piano and clean the sanctuary prior to our call. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you everybody for joining us. Again, we're Red River Leadership. John's got a little thing to share here. A quick shameless plug. We are so excited, right, John? We have been working our tails off to get some courses out. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yes, give me just a second here for some visual. Yes, Nolan and I have been working. We explained a little bit more in last week's video. If you missed that, go back and watch it. But we, when COVID hit, things shifted quickly, and we needed to make a much more intentional kind of individual approach to help churches get online quickly and to troubleshoot some things. And we found that a lot of the issues that churches are running into were very site specific things. So we kind of shifted our focus as Red River to working with churches individually. And while we're going to continue to do that, we are also excited to announce our online Red River Worship Leadership School. So here's a little visual here. So this is our new website, redriverleadership.com. Head over there, where we're going to have different courses available. And our first two courses launch on July 15th of this month. So we're really excited about that. So head over here. Yeah, right?
What's that, Tim?
He said, how do I sign up?
Oh, right here.
Yes, so we've got 2 courses dropping here in July: Pro Presenter Essentials and Planning Center Essentials. And the reason we picked those two to do first are because those collectively, between Nolan and I, those 2 tools, as soon as we implemented those into our worship ministries, were just game changers. You can
biggest game changers ever.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend time like we have today talking about mentality and DI boxes and brand names and brand name consoles. And those are very important along the way as well. But these were 2 programs that when we implemented them, Planning Center completely streamlined our worship planning systems. So everything, it's kind of your online hub for all your worship planning. And then Pro Presenter allows you to streamline a lot of your visual experience too. We spent hours building PowerPoints and trying to make things look nice and clean on PowerPoint. But this was designed really specifically for live event production.
So let's put this
and church production.
Let's put this in a context that we were just talking about with Tim, like your visual, the words, the lyrics, how it looks behind it, all pointing to Jesus. Like every single thing, every element in worship, the message, the songs, the prayers, the visuals, everything, the audio, the technology, everything is in line together to point to the gospel message and what Jesus has done and how he loves you, right? Yeah. Every single thing. And so visually, Pro Presenter is the #1 game changer, I'd say, ever. There are certainly other ones out there, and there's a lot of good ones out there. This is the one that we chose. This is wherever we went, this was recommended. When we go to conferences, when we go to concerts, like worldwide worship tours, they're using this, and it's super accessible. It's super learnable. I'd say reasonable as far as pricing. Just wonderful. Planning Center, same context. Like this is a tool that we use that gets the pastor, the worship leaders, the volunteers, the hosts, the tech team, the everybody, the secretary, anybody, the graphic designer, whatever it is, everybody on the same page, so that you don't have 50 different group messages with this group, with this group, with this group, with this group. It takes it and it streamlines it in a way that, again, we can save time and energy to find better ways to point people to that gospel message. And so those are the 2 game changers for us, which I think you couldn't ask a random congregant, for somebody who came to worship, has Planning Center changed your lives? Has Planning Center or Pro Presenter pointed you to Jesus? They wouldn't be able to say that. But ultimately, I 100% guarantee that it has. It has been because of those tools that has given us the ability to do this. And that's why we're so passionate about doing this. And we're using language and building it in a way that is for the very first time beginner, because John, Tim, and I have been there. And at one point in our lives, we're like, I don't know how to use this. Oh my gosh, this is so, this looks so confusing. It is not. Taking these courses is going to teach you from the very beginning all the way to a place where you can plug and play, rock and roll, and praise God.
Right. Awesome. And then coming in August is going to be our worship leading essentials course. And we've been having fun with that one, compiling just a big list and curriculum overall of those game-changing methods. And more so too, just advice and things that we've learned the hard way along the way. The things that we kind of wish we would have known earlier, because we want to give you a head start. So if you have a new person leading worship on your team, this course is great. If you've been leading worship for a long time, want some refreshers, maybe some new ideas, some new systems that can help you just save time, mentality of how and why we lead worship the way that we do. We're going to be talking about contemporary, modern, traditional, all different types of worship leadership. So that'll be coming in August.
Very exciting.
So, yeah, very exciting.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you very much, Tim. We'll
Yeah,
certainly
thanks, man.
have you back again. Good
Awesome.
luck, guys.